Wrong one.
That's what I like to hear. Oops. That's my favorite thing to hear.
This is DK and Shade for TacoYaki Anime.
Otherwise known as Oops.
And we are back for episode 92 of What's the Ketchup?
Yes. There were definitely some shows this season I was pleasantly surprised on, and those that I pretty much knew what was going to happen, I believe.
Yeah. So last time we talked, I had a whole 3 weeks, and then we added a week.
And you still didn't finish much, huh?
I got 3 shows finished.
And I bet you not one of them's Dungeon.
Ah,
Nope.
we shall see. But yeah. We have 8 shows, I think, to talk about today.
Oh boy. This is better than our usual for like the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's usually around like 6 or something like that.
That too.
Yes, we have 8 shows to talk about. And the first show we're going to talk about Dungeon Season 4.
So, you're going to answer my question? Did you watch the newest season?
Oh my god, it's so good.
Oh, so you did watch the newest season? Yes, it is absolutely amazing.
Ah.
I cannot gush enough about this season. Oh my god, it is so good.
So, we kind of need to backtrack because we weren't really able to talk about Season 3.
Yeah, so I guess we'll talk a little bit about, at least towards the end of Season 3.
Yes. So where I left off, and then you can pick up from there, is Xenos was discovered, and that Hermes, that asshole, tried to make a hubbub happen. And I stopped watching right when the Minotaur, right? Yeah, right when he showed up.
Okay. So you didn't see the fight that
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, when I was watching the fight, and his last words was like one for you, one for me. Next time we'll fight to the end.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the ending of that had the Minotaur. The Minotaur and him went at it,
Yes.
and the Minotaur won.
Yes.
Barely. It was close.
Yeah.
It was close. It was close.
That was the first episode I watched, and then I watched all the way until the end.
So there was that one, and then season 3. So that was the end of season 2. Season 2 technically ended with the Minotaur fight. Season 3, the head of the Adventures Guild or whatever, I can't remember which god centers around that, but there's a god who is over that, who knows about the Xenos and all that other stuff.
Oh yeah, that dude in the shadows.
Yep. He sends a request to our favorite group here, and basically stating that he wants them to be able to. He feels that they're strong enough to start going towards the lower ends of the dungeon. This, of course, surprises Bell, thinking that he's not quite ready for that. But the very beginning of the 3rd season has everyone kind of like weaponing up, armoring up, powering up, kind of getting things ready. Sanjuno, Haruhime, she kind of levels up. Welf, he starts getting a whole bunch of equipment and stuff like that. And even Lily, like, starts taking advice from one of the I don't know if it was the barmaid. I know it was one of like previous adventurer who was very good about like tactics and like You know, and like what it reminded me of was Log Horizon. The
Yeah.
main character of Log Horizon, how he stands back and surveys the battlefield and will give orders to everyone because he's the only one who has the most broad perspective of everything, kind of the situation.
Yep.
Um, so I commend that. I thought that was really good. In So they do a lot of that. They go back, they go down into the dungeon, and um, at one point they're pretty successful. They run
Yeah,
into
things were going great. I was like, man.
yeah, they run into a few little hiccups as far as that goes, but things were going pretty well for the most part. And then during the what was it? The um during the their peaceful area, like the no monster zone situation, so where there was like a town and everything in, that's when they first hear about Ryu, and all of a sudden she becomes a focal point as far as what the hell's going on, why is she attacking people all of a sudden, not only attacking, murdering people. um and boy, does that lead down a huge freaking rabbit hole of immensity for the most part.
And
um
I like the way they revealed it because even though in the back of your head you're like, she can't be like, this
well,
can't be true.
but see, at the same time, yes, I was thinking that, but at the same time, there was a part of me who was like, I know she had that backstory in season one where she was talking about the fact that she went and basically murked an entire guild that had attacked her guild and wiped out her
Yes.
guild, basically. And I'm like, so I know she has it within herself, but I also
Yeah.
feel like there's probably a good reason behind that. Like she wouldn't just do it for shits and giggles. Like there would actually have to
Yeah.
be like a really freaking good reason why she would be doing that.
Yeah. It's kind of like one of them things where it's like somebody who you know, they're like, oh, they did this to this one person. You're like, well, what did that other person do? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like you have faith in the person that you know, and you want to know the full story. You don't want to just take.
So you know it's not as simple as just like, oh, they went and did this yada 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 for no reason. You're like, no, 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 no. There was a reason behind it. You're just not telling me what that reason is. So my whole thought is especially towards the end, I was more concerned that she wasn't gonna give Belle the proper time to try to, like Belle was trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yes, immediately.
She wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
When they finally met up, she was so totally focused on her revenge. She didn't care about anything. Like
Yeah.
I was afraid for a second there she was going to attack Belle just because Belle was getting in the way.
Yeah, when they show the flashback of her like finding like the last one and like her face kind of just lit up in anger. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh no.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I thought the same thing. Um. So yeah, I had once again one of those moments when bringing me back to season one where I was yelling at our goddess about giving him the goddamn knife. Where I was once again yelling at the screen of kill that mother humper. The one dude who was like the puppeteer behind all of this. I'm like, kill him, please just kill him. He's right there. There's nothing in the way of you. Just freaking kill him. You're gonna be happier for it. Trust me. I don't even care what happens afterwards. Just kill him. Kill him.
Yeah.
Freaking kill him. Either you kill him or you let her kill him, but somebody freaking kill him because there's no reason why he needs to live.
And this whole Batman approach just made everything worse.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, this is my plan. I have this one specific thing right here that I want to use. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, kill him
Just kill
before
him.
he uses it.
Kill him. Yeah, just kill him.
And they just drag it on and drag it on. It's like, oh, we find out the reasons why everything happened. Okay, cool. Now you can kill him. And they're like, no, 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 no. And you're like, ah. And then he just jumps out and he's like, oh yeah, remember my plan? inactive. And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah. Well, and then it was so obvious once it came to be, like, when the creature was out and everything, and he's like, "Aha! I've got it. I'll be able to mine." And I'm looking at it going, "You're not gonna control that thing. You're so not gonna control that thing, motherfucker. I know you're not gonna control that thing." And sure enough, I'm waiting for it. I'm like, "Come on, come on. When's it gonna happen?" And all of a sudden, it just goes and just clump, and I'm like, "Yep, there he is. Okay, now he's dead." Took you long enough. Freaking kill that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So, but then we get to that kind of we expedited things a bit, but that kind of brings us up to, well, so on top of that, all the craziness with Bell and Ryu are happening. Now all the craziness with Lily, Welf, Haruhime, Mikoto, and their group happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they all came down there as a group with a bunch of higher level people, and all of a sudden it just became Bell's crew was the only one left standing. And now all of a sudden they have to face the floor boss.
Yeah.
And that was crazy.
Yeah.
I
It's
will say
like,
I will say, and I'm sure anyone who's ever watched any of my reactions in regards to any of this stuff, I wasn't thrilled about the CGI. It wasn't like one of my most favoritist of things, because it did kind of pull me out of it just a bit. Um, but I like overall the action and how everything came together. Like at the end of it, it was basically a Hail Mary play that allowed them to survive.
yeah.
I'm not even gonna say win, because
Yeah.
they were hurting by the time they were done with that. They survived.
Yeah.
So
Um, Speaking of the CG, I do like the water was okay. The
mm-hmm,
waterfall was not is too like misty for
mm-hmm,
in my opinion.
mm-hmm,
Um, and then yeah, the texture of the dragon and everything was decent. Like
mm-hmm.
it wasn't
I've seen worse, but
super
I've also seen
CG.
better.
Yes. So at times I forgot that it was CG. And then at other times I'm like, oh yeah, it's a CG dragon.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, um, there was like a fireball towards the end, and they like ended the episode there, and I'm like screaming my lungs out, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't,
Yep.
you can't do this.
So it's probably about that time that I realized how the whole rest of the season was going to go. So I stopped watching it for the longest time and just waited for episodes to pile up. Because I'm like, I'm not going to be happy unless if I start this, I'm going to want to finish it. I'm not going to
Yeah,
be happy just going halfway into it. Um,
yeah,
so with that, I also So, Bell's crew, they had a hard time, and I commend them. I enjoy the characterization and the level up both in character and in power that his crew went through, and how they were able to do some amazing stuff on their own. Which is cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish that in any sort of way, but I will say the main part of this whole adventure and this whole season was Bell and Ryu, and I loved every second of their interactions and everything that they had to deal with every single moment of every single time.
yeah,
Like, it was a hopeless situation, and they really, I don't necessarily know if it was I had to give credit all around. I mean, the voice actors, the way it was drawn, because everything was always like dark and everything was gloomy. It was all like, because it was like the white wall or whatever, everything was kind
yeah,
of like whitewashed a little bit, so didn't look
yeah,
as bright or vibrant. So you felt gloomy, you felt doom around every corner, and the voice actors themselves really sold that as well. like the desperation in their voice and just the I've given up sort of situation that they went through time and time again. And oh god, it just every single time I felt just a wave of emotion, like a roller coaster of emotions. You
Yeah.
know, from the triumphs that they had to like the low points when she destroys the bridge crossing the Colosseum, and I'm sitting there going, "You suck! You should have gone across with it. Why didn't you go? You were sacrificing yourself for no goddamn good reason.
It was
Why you?"
no
And
reason. Oh.
the exuberance that I felt when he paid off the what is it Chekhov's gun, where she mentioned the fact that there was a way for to a connection on another side, but they
Yes.
were like, that's not the side we want to go down, this is the side we want to go down. And he runs off and I'm like, oh, you can't be leaving her, you can't be leaving her. And then all of a sudden he just comes out of nowhere and I'm like sweet, yes. Oh my god, such a good feeling.
Yes.
and,
Um.
and just the moments that the two of them shared with each other, just time and time again, just the moments, the little things, the little itty bitty things that they shared. Because when you're feeling that low, when you're bottomed out, you've got nothing else. It's you're just working on fumes essentially, and it's always those little things that will make the biggest impact for you during those times. So like everything that happened throughout that entire thing where they had those moments with each other, I fully believed and I was fully on board for it. Because it made sense to my mind that this would be what two people who've essentially just been like, I'm done. I can't there's what hope do we have of getting out of this? We're both highly wounded. We have no supplies, no backup. We've got nothing. How are we
Yeah.
gonna do this? It
And
just made
surrounded by people who didn't make it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. When they found
Yeah.
those other dead adventures and
Yeah.
everything, and I'm like, oh man. Like you felt like the exuberance when he saw the light and then just the other just drops out from underneath you as he realizes it was a dying lantern from a dead adventuring party who just never made it back.
Yeah. And it's not like they it's not like they fell and got attacked by a monster and like immediately died. Like they have a map that they like built and
Hmm.
then like all
Like they
these
were they were
different.
trying.
Yes.
Yeah, they were trying.
And then ultimately it just didn't work out. And it's like,
Nope. Because the
and
one
that,
thing that they did is eventually they saw the Colosseum and they're just like, no, there's no way. There's just no way. Because that
yeah,
was what Ryu had been trying to avoid, was going in that direction, because she knew whatever stopped them in their tracks had been there, because that's where the map led to. They're
yeah,
like, whatever direction they were going in, something when they reached this point forced them to go, we give up. There's no fucking way.
yeah,
So, and with all that being said, I do think now that the out of every relationship he has ever had in the series so far, I think the relationship between him and Ryu, where she's now showing feelings for him, especially at the very end, I feel like with what they went through is entirely warranted. Entirely warranted.
yeah,
Because I mean, they have dealt with a situation that pushed them to their limits, in which no other person in Bell's crew could even say that he's ever even come close to.
yeah. And it's like not even to the limits, like multiple times beyond their limits.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like as soon as Belle got down there, he just immediately went into mind down mode. And
Yep.
she like coaxed him out of it.
Yep.
And then she's like, all right, here's the situation. They're gonna respawn in about 5 minutes. So what I need you to do, Belle, is you need to rest here for 5 minutes and then I'll rest. And he's like, okay, okay. And then he like as soon as he passes out, she just immediately starts sweating. And I'm like, oh shit, is it really 5 minutes? Did you just say that for him to be okay?
Yeah.
Now I'm scared.
Yeah. It's just, she put up a good front, but at the same time, like in the back of her mind, she was already putting herself in a situation where she would have to sacrifice her life to him so that way he could keep going.
Those freaking skull goats. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're just silent and they bite the crap out of you and just stab you with spines, and it's just they show up in packs and they're so fast. And I'm like,
Yeah.
God, Jesus, I'm so glad he had that cloth. Like that cloth, like, oh my God.
The cloth and the unicorn's horn dagger that Wilf gave him. Had he not had that, he wouldn't have made it.
So,
But thinking about all that, it's like it's like we've had situations where we knew Bell leveled up. Like when he first fought the first Minotaur and everything, we're like, okay, Bell's leveled up. He's defeated a Minotaur that was well and beyond what his capabilities were, but it was one enemy. We've always seen him face one enemy. Like even the big boss at the end of season 1, that was still one enemy with like some little underlings or whatever, but for the most part, his main focus was just on the big guy, essentially. I'm curious to see what Bell's going to be like now.
Yeah.
Because he went so far beyond what he has ever done. And towards the end there, like he was actually succeeding.
Yeah.
There wasn't a monster down there towards the end that he wasn't able to handily take care of.
Yeah. Like,
So I'm like, the next season that comes out, oh God, what is Bell gonna be like?
I want to give like these 2 seasons props for like the bosses, because normally like the boss is just this overwhelming threat, and everybody kind of has to like pull like everything out of like every resource that they have to like overcome it. And that happened. It's like Bell's crew, that was their story.
Yep.
Pull out every trick in the book to succeed, barely.
Barely, yeah, exactly.
Bell's journey was he was part of the group when they came across that slime thing, and then it was a one-on-one fight with the slime thing, and the slime thing was highly intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was super agile until it got bigger, and that was dumb. But but it was smart, and it like kicked him into it, like dragged him down into the river and like separated him because it knew that he was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Bell was like struggling in the water, and then it let him go, and he's like, huh? And then he just slowly floated away and fell a bunch of floors down. And I'm like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Good job, you piece of shit. I was so mad. And then the one healer that was doom and gloom for like half of the seat, I can't.
Why do they not listen to her? Why does her friend not take her premonitions more seriously? I'm like, okay, look, I know she's doom and gloom, but there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
She's seen some shit. Take it to fucking heart. Listen to what she has to say and stop fucking ignoring her.
And it's like, because she's been ignored so much, like her attitude is just doom and gloom, doom and gloom. My visions are gonna come true.
Nobody listens
and
to
I'm
her.
like, please, could you stop? I'm like, you're ruining the intro of every episode. Please stop. I'm like, I have to turn away because I don't want to see this, because I'm pretty sure this is not gonna happen. This is just your vision, and this is depressing. So I'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, you're done doom and gloom. All right, let's begin the episode. Multiple episodes in a row.
Yes, I was annoyed with her, but as much as I was annoyed with her, I felt so sorry for her too.
Yes.
Because it's like she's trying to give this information to everyone to forewarn them that something dangerous and serious is about to happen, and everyone's just like, "Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
Dude, fucking pay attention.
It's like the first person that comes up with an idea to respond to what she says, everybody just goes along with it.
Mm.
Whether if they agree with her, and they're like, okay, cool, we should do this. And they're like, okay, we should do this. And they're like, no, I think we should do this. Or no, I think we should listen to her. And I'm like, okay, let's listen to her. And I'm like, do y'all have your own thoughts? Like,
But I'm just like sitting here going, okay, you guys have magic, you have gods, you have otherworldly monster creatures or whatever, and you're gonna balk about premonitions? About someone potentially seeing into the future? Oh, magic, fireballs, and all this other stuff, that's real. Gods are real. But premonitions? Oh, that's fairy tale stuff. You're
yeah,
just delusional. You're just scared. No, she's actually fucking seeing this shit.
yeah,
Pay the fuck attention.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. Premonitions are very tricky things to handle because, and I think it's kind of the direction that they're heading in with it is that you can see into the future, but that doesn't mean that sometimes your own actions will cause it to come about.
yes,
So you trying to avoid it will make it happen. So
yes,
sometimes it's best not to do anything, but I think she needs to find somebody who can train her how to use this ability,
yes,
refine it a little bit more, or she needs to just sit down and figure this shit out. And she needs to have everyone else around her actually believe in her and fucking pay attention to her from now on. Cause oh my god.
yeah. It's like the one time she's like, no, for real, I'm expressing myself genuinely. They're like, okay, let's do that, and then they don't die, and it's
Yeah.
like, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like they didn't go up and said they went down, and the other people up there fell from a huge height and died, and everything. And it's like, and they're like, oh wow, if we went up there, we'd have died. She tried telling you that, and you wouldn't listen.
But yeah. So that first like boss character was very interesting. The second version of him, not so much. The the what did the 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 dungeon birthed a creature.
Yeah, I just call him the dungeon creature.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one that just couldn't or wouldn't die for the longest time, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
basically like the dungeon stealth bomber. Um,
Essentially, and
yeah,
that thing had so many goddamn protections and so many layers of shielding onto it. Like you could only kill that thing in a very very specific fucking manner, and you'd be
yeah,
lucky to be able to do it before it killed you.
yeah. Or escaped and came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, one like the whole arc of that monster was very interesting because
Oh
it's
yeah, for sure.
like
I
actually seeing the history of it being birthed for the probably the first time
mhm,
or the most recent time playing out, and you actually seeing how the story of the elves familia played out,
mhm,
because the rumor, or at least the way that I took that the rumor played out, was there was this like evil familia.
mhm,
They killed her familia, and
mhm.
then she alone killed the other familia back.
Yeah.
And what ended up playing out was there's a feud going on. One familia sets off this trap that ends up causing the dungeon to birth this creature.
But see,
That they
it was completely by accident, which was
yes,
even more astounding by the fact that like they didn't even know that was going to happen. They just knew they were trying to use the dungeon itself as a weapon against them without
yeah,
realizing that by doing so they were going to unleash one of the biggest freaking horrors imaginable. I don't even think the god who resides over this whole thing even knew that that was going to happen until it happened. Because
Yeah.
it even seemed like it surprised the shit out of him too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like this unexpected event killed both familias. And there's like 2 people remaining. And yeah, it's I like the way that they handled that backstory.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah. Then basically everything that they, well, most of the things that they were, I guess the group of mobs that they ran into in the White Castle was like, it just wears you down.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
Oh
like
yeah.
the first thing that you see, they're like, oh my God, that almost killed Belle. And then there's more. And then
Yeah.
there's more. And then guess what? In this building that's full of them, and they're
Yeah.
infinite. And you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
And he hasn't even gotten down to the lowest levels.
Yeah. So you're like
And the
now
thing
thinking,
is the dude's telling him he, in order to solve, to fix things, he has to go down to the lowest level.
and it's, yeah. Now I'm kind of curious. What are what is it? The lower levels, then the mid levels and lower levels. How did they?
So there's the upper levels, which is what we first did in the first season.
Yeah.
We didn't really get into the mid levels. Well, no, we started getting into the mid levels. Started getting into the mid levels by the end of the first season. Second season really didn't get into the mid levels a whole lot.
Yeah.
But then third season, that's when we wanted to get to the lower levels. But here, it's like even though they say lower levels, I'm thinking that their version of that is that we're, if say, okay, like in a range, right?
Yeah.
Upper levels is like, let's say 1 through 10.
Yeah.
Mid levels would be like 11 through
I
20 or something like that. And
think
then
like 20.
like I'm just guessing on these numbers a little
Yeah.
bit as far as it goes. But I'm thinking like lower levels is like 21 through like 40 or something like that. And if that was an equivalence of what they've been through just on this season, even though they were on the lower levels, they only call it the lower levels because that's how far anyone has ever gone. This where they've
Ah.
been is as high as they've gone, but that means they've only gotten maybe within the like the 21 to 30 range. No one's been below like the 31 to 40 range on like the bottom freaking part of the dungeon.
Yeah. It's like writing on a piece of paper. You start writing too big, and then you're like, oh, I'm running out of names.
Yeah.
We already called it the lowest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's what it is. From what he's saying, it's like Bell's gonna have to make a choice when he gets down there. As far as like what that choice is, I don't know. But he won't know, and it sounds like it's something that's pretty like off the wall. So I don't think he can't tell Bell what it is that he's going to be expecting or doing. He's going to have to see it for himself, is what I gather. So
Another mob that was interesting, but it was kind of like a one note kind of thing was those birds.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, nobody else has come across those birds because I guess nobody came down to that level or that area.
No, 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 because they mentioned the fact they knew about the birds,
Yeah.
but they knew about how fast they were. And they're
Yeah.
like, basically anyone who's seen them, I think after the first group of people probably died to them, they're too fast, you see them, you run. You get the
Yeah.
hell out of there. So I don't think anyone's ever gone up against those things because no one knew how to handle them. No one was
Yeah.
fast enough to be able to handle them. Tell Bell.
Yeah. There's been, it's like every time you turn the corner, you're like, oh my God, Bell hasn't come across this before. Is he going to die right now? It's
Yeah.
like every 5 minutes.
It was every situation as far as that goes, and every single floor he came across, every enemy, every group of enemies he came across. But at the same time, it came to a point where it's like you're looking at Bell do this stuff, and you're like, he's got it. Like his understanding from where he was back when he first was training under whatever the fuck her name is initially. Um, when he was first training under her, comparatively to what he does now, is like I just want to look at Bell. I don't think as a character, Bell realizes just how much he has grown as a character. His battle IQ, his awareness, everything with dealing with that has grown significantly. Like, and I think it's because of everything he's done up till that point. Everything kind of coalesced into one another because he's grabbed information from so many different sources and brought it into him. I think is the only reason why the elf lady, when she was explaining these things to him, he got it so quickly. It was like an instantaneous. She says, I need you to slow down. I need you to conserve your energy. I need you to not make a hit unless you know that that hit is going to be a killing hit because you're wasting your own energy by jumping around as you do
Flailing,
and flailing. And what did he do the next time we saw him fighting? He was doing exactly that. And in fact,
it's
he
just like,
was using his enemy's momentum and their own attacks against them.
it's like use your environment and stuff like that. So like, it's
But normally you tell somebody that, and it's not like they're going to immediately catch on and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I know what you're talking about." Normally, that's not the case. But I think it's because of all of everything that Bell had been through up to that point. His battle IQ on his understanding on how fights should go and everything like that was just growing. And it wasn't until that moment that a lot of that occurred to him, but his understanding of it was just like instantaneous.
yeah,
Like he understood the reasons why Ryu was telling him of the things that she thought he needed to do. You know, but it wasn't until an outside source looked at him and went, "Bell, let me just tell you this right now. You need to understand something. Energy is scarce right now. You need to conserve as much as possible. So by doing so, I want to make sure do not hit something unless you know it is a killing blow and they're going to die from it." And the next thing you know, he's out there slashing freaking going through like a freaking blender just through every single one of them, hitting vital points, and every single one was just immediately like destroyed because he was focusing on those points and made sure that every blow he dealt was a killing blow.
yeah. And I think like the situation was also like the ideal situation because that's how elite fighters fight already when they have plenty of energy left. And for him to kind of get desperate and yeah, I only have a couple punches left in me. So let me save these punches for something very important, just like they just said. So
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Like everything he did, I commend. I mean, seeing Bell from where he was at initially on the first season to seeing him now, I feel like a proud parent just watching their kid grow up. Essentially, I'm like, you used to be such a crybaby. You used to be such a I don't want to deal with it kind of situation, teen angst, whatever. And it's just
wasting
like
so much energy.
wasting so much energy. But now looking at what you can do and looking at how, like, I would never have believed the Bell from for season one would have been capable of taking charge so effectively. Because he can take charge of a situation like nobody's business.
Yeah.
So, and now Wealth can make never-ending magic swords.
Oh man.
I
So
like it. I like it though. There's still a price to be paid.
yes.
So it's not like you can just keep whipping those damn things out. You got to pay attention on what your magic reserves are doing.
Yes. So with that, is that the state of magical weapons in general? And his is the first one that doesn't break, or is that his skill set?
I think it's a combination of his skill set and the material that he was using, as I want to say.
So there's other like blacksmiths that can build stuff that doesn't break.
Well, it depends on the material, I would think. I don't think it's a matter of like the material that he used and everything involved with that, plus with like the spell of protection or whatever he got him. Like everything just came together so beautifully in that regards. Yeah, I feel like that was the best thing that you could happen in that regards. But it shows his growth though too.
Yes.
Because he initially always said that he never wanted to make any more magical weapons because he, as a blacksmith, saw them as a weakness, not as a plus. He saw them as, why are you going to use something that is eventually going to break on you in X amount of casts or something like that, and then you're weaponless. Like he always hated those. So the fact that he bought the building and said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm still gonna do it, and I'm gonna make the very best one I could ever make. And he did.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
The
like,
only difference
I found the resource that could probably do it.
The only difference is that it drains him. So it's a negative as far as that goes, is it drains the wielder. Eventually the wielder runs out of magic and basically would go mind down because essentially you're empowering it to do what you want it to do. It's just causing it to be that much more explosive and bigger, is what I feel like it is.
So comparing that to the previous ones, would you like load it up with a certain amount of magic and then it would just kind of empty out?
It's like there was only so many charges before it has to replenish itself. I don't necessarily think you had to like recharge it as far as um, adding more magic or anything to it. I think it's just a matter of like you only had someone cast a spell on it and it only gave it so many charges, and once it's done, it needs like, if we're going by D&D rules here, it's like you would need like 24 hours for it to be able to come back online with as many charges as it once had.
Okay. That makes sense. And now it just it's like a direct source.
Oh
right
yeah.
into your MP.
But he still like, after a while he felt the repercussions of that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I love that moment though. Like you said, it was beautifully executed.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. I fucking love that with him.
And he was just like cling, cling, cling. And after a while, I'm like, that doesn't look like it changed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think this is bad. And then he said it, and I'm like, oh, it's not just me. He knows it too.
Yeah. The only other thing in the character-wise I really want to appreciate is Haruhime, the fox girl. She has come up so much from where she was at before.
Yeah.
Like I also had to take was just confidence in what she could do.
Yes.
And her ability to do it.
Yeah.
I feel like, when she only has a monochrome of it at this point. I feel like once she actually gains the rest of it back is when we're going to see just an absolutely buffed out, powered Haruhime, because then she's going to be like, she'll have the confidence she needs and she'll be able to do amazing things with it. So
yeah. And then the lady that gave her like the tone that like unleashed the fire, like her arc, I don't feel like she changed much. I think she was.
Are you talking about one of the maids, the barmaids?
The Amazonian lady?
Yeah, does she work as one of the barmaids behind the? Oh no! You're talking about the No, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, from season 3.
No, she really hasn't changed much. But I don't think that this season was hers to give out as far as any. It's like when as far as characters go, she was definitely a support character.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I always think that, we all need them at some point in time. But yeah, it was just Haruhime though blew me away by the fact that she actually grew a spine and stood up. She rescued freaking Lily.
Yeah.
She rescued Lily, and I didn't know what was going to happen to her, and I had a freaking badass moment as she's casting her own spell in the flames.
Yeah.
See, to me, that moment there was the same as what you've seen all the slime at this point too, haven't you?
I believe so.
Okay, when Rimuru did the had them attack the Carrion's castle towards the end of the last season,
Mm-hmm.
and he sent the three ogres, or they're something else entirely. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he sent them to Carrion's castle to take it over, and basically to steal all this money and all this and everything. The part where she goes head to head with the necromancer and basically states, "Oh, now I'm angry," in such a sweet little way, like that reminds me of freaking Haruhime in her moment. I'm like, I saw her come out of those flames and like, still around her, and she gave zero fucks whatsoever,
Yeah.
zero fucks. And I'm like, oh, we've turned on that badass switch now, haven't we? Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah.
It's just I'm
I'm trying to
curious. I'm
think.
like, it's why it's like, God, at this point, I feel like so many characters, Haruhime, Lily, Ryu, Welf, hell, even Makoto and Bell, all of them are on like the cusp of being like, it's like in Dragon Ball when it's like Dragon Ball Z when it's like we're about to hit. We all know we're about to hit Super Saiyan 2 or Ascend to Super Saiyan 2, whatever it is. We're just like we built up to that point, and we're like now we're standing on that cusp. And I'm
Yes.
like, I know what's going to happen. He's gonna get a power up. She's gonna get a power up. She's gonna get a power up, and it'll be glorious.
Yeah.
But
I kind of feel a little bit bad for the goddess because she's like getting left
so
behind.
I like the fact that normally she would be copping a fit over the fact that you know she's getting left behind. She has to stay there. This, that, and the other thing. But I feel like that's also showing her maturization through the fact that she's like, I, I can't do anything. I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna support them as best I can. But it's not like she's being angry about it. She's being supportive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bravo, you've grown. You didn't get all frustrated or whatever. You're just like you're trying to send people down there to help out. And you're like, keep going. You guys go. I'm manning the fort. You guys keep going. And I'm like, That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Man, I can't even imagine what's gonna happen in the next season.
Oh no, neither can I.
Yeah, this season took me for a complete ride and dragged me to the places that I was like, I
One
guess
of
we're here now.
one of the one of the best goddamn rides I've been on in a long time.
Yeah.
Like if okay, Nixing season 2, because we all try to forget about that season. Nixing season 2, and if we were just talking about seasons 1, 3, and 4, or I guess technically this is, well, either way. So 1, 3, and 4, right? Which one would be on the, like, if you were to order them from best to worst, what would be your list?
Oh man. Um.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's
It's hard.
like them ascending, but going through so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's an amazing season,
Mm-hmm.
but does that compete with the building of everything? Because it's like I would say season two is in the back because it's like the precursor. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, things are getting bad, and the monsters are
Whatever
getting
should
way
we
more.
do?
Yeah, and it's like the monsters are getting way smarter, and you're like, oh god.
Yeah.
And then season three is like, hold on to your butts. Like, just
Yeah, you had to too. That man, just freaking. I don't know. I think this last season. I'm so torn between this last season and the first season and which one I like more.
Yeah.
I really am. The third season was still all right, but it just didn't have enough oomph for me to credit it, I guess, as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But the other two, I'm like, yeah, y'all did some good shit.
Yeah. I guess I would have to say the first season is still up top because it's like the introduction to everything.
Yeah, no, I could
It's
see that.
building the world. And then hold on to your butts at season 2. Things are getting bad at season 3. And then let's go frolic in the other area. It's season 4, the fourth place.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh man, I am so amped now to see if the next time we see Dungeon on the up and coming anime list, I'm going to be ecstatic.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the best show of the season. Like just hands down.
It's definitely up there. It's definitely up there.
Yeah. All right. The next show we're gonna be talking about is Reborn Master of the Blade, from Hero King to Extraordinary Squire.
Okay. Almost wish we would have saved that one, the dungeon, for last. Going through these and everything. Okay, so things that I would agree and I like about the show. So the main character gets reincarnated and then realizes that he is a she. Normally, a lot of animes tend to try to play on that, make fun of that, do stuff with that. This is one of the first that I've come across that has been like, hey, it's a guy that got turned into a girl. All right, well, just, replace wheels on tire, and we still got an adventure. Let's go. They're like, we're not wasting any time. And that to me is what this felt like, because it didn't like go, I'm gonna sit here and play with my boobs. It's like he was the king prior to this when he got reincarnated
Yes.
as now a woman. So he's not gonna do things like that only because that would be kind of beneath him. Like he still retains all his memories as a king, so there's definitely a regal air about him. And I will say the fights are definitely very cool. I enjoy them a lot. I think the two characters here uh, do a real good job at portraying some of that like more interesting aspects when it comes to like sword play or anything like that. So I appreciate that. The one thing I think that this anime suffered from was the writing and the tempo. And I'm not sure if that's just because it would have been better had they had 24 episodes to work with. But we got what we got, and this is what we got to deal with. So, as far as any sort of rating in regards to this, I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the world. The pacing was definitely needed improvement on. We spent way little time on certain subjects and way too much time on other subjects, and I'm like, where are your fucking priorities? Because it ain't here. Let me tell you that right now. Um, yeah, I just feel like this could have been another great show had they actually stuck to their guns and done what should have happened in this. So,
Okay. So would you recommend this show?
if you are a fan of fantasy, isekai, sword fighting, magic, all the like, yes, I would say it is a decent enough watch. It has its moments as far as like a lot of it goes, but you are going to get that feeling that like the pacing is off, or some of the dialogue that some of the character says is just a little bit weird or off. Um, just gonna have to kind of just accept it and just move on, I think.
Okay. So I know that you said that it's surprising that the King character is like has more of a regal like attitude about everything, and it's not. It's like
The only reason I
edgy and
say
stuff like.
that, yeah, the only reason I say that is because and I know you have too, we have dealt with enough body swap situations over the years where we know what a lot of like the immature men do when the minute they get into a woman's body or whatever, and you're just sitting here going, "God, can we avoid this? We don't need to
Yeah, it's kind of like
sexualize this. Can we just move on, please?"
yeah. Usually when it's like a gender swap like that, it's like, oh, is this an ecchi show? And it's
Yeah,
like, no. You're like, are you sure?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, because that's the primary freaking,
yeah,
goddamn biggest detail of any freaking etchy show right there. It's like, they even call it erotic pillow. I don't know. So many things. So many things in that regards. Like they could do very etchy, and I'm so glad they didn't. Like they didn't follow upon that trope.
yes. So I guess what I was leading up to is what did it meet your expectations for like a gender swap show? And it looks like it.
So in that regards, for a swap show, it exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
Because I came into it thinking, oh, here we go again. Now we're gonna have this, oogling and they're all doing pervy things just to get rise out. It's like no, she was very, very regal, very good looking, so she did catch the eyes of many people. But at the same time, one of his internal monologues that he had with himself was thinking to himself, wow, is this what it feels like to have the whole room staring at you and you feel like you're just, getting closed off from everything? And it's like, yeah, it's probably what women deal with on a regular basis. And he's like, even mentioning the fact that he even kind of at least would do some sideways glances at certain ladies that would catch his eye. And I'm like, and it's not comfortable, is it? You don't like it, do you? Well, that's just kind of the world, unfortunately. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Um. So, did you have a favorite character?
um, Reborn. Let me think. The only reason why I wouldn't immediately say the main character is that they're one-ton powerless, essentially, of them wanting to like constantly do battle with stronger and stronger people. And I'm like, enough already. We get it. You want to face strong opponents. Cool. Move on. Um, was the only reason why I wouldn't want to put her in like my top spot for that. Um, the friend was a little wishy-washy. See, that's what I was saying. The writing on itself was kind of either meh or kind of mid. Nothing really amazing happened during the whole thing, as far as I thought. No, like it's just.
I was about to say, did you have a favorite part? Like,
Um, I mean, so I'm that type of person who always enjoys seeing like the bad guy thoroughly get their just resorts or whatever, or when like they think they have the upper hand and you're just like, you're dumb, sit down, I don't have time to deal with you right now. Um, and that kind of happened in towards one of the later episodes where the on high highland people from up in the floating mountains and castle or whatever that they have, one of the emissaries came down and started causing some shit, and our main little heroine character here was like, you're gonna stop that like right now. And of course, he was too pompous and full of himself. And he's like, who's going to make me? Excuse me? You can't do shit. And he tried using his like abilities on her to no effect. She's like nullified every single one of them. And I'm like, dude, you're fucked. Move on. You're not winning this one. I just have a dead feeling about it. So,
okay. Did they leave it open for another season, or was it kind
yes.
of just?
Yes, they did. They did. And I would still be open to another season. I'm just hoping that when they get to the next season, they're a little more refined and hopefully have a little more breathing room with their story or whatever. So we actually don't feel like we're just like bim bam boom rushing from one city to another city to another problem, another problem. It's like, we're basically like Kiki's journey right now, where it's just like we go to one city, there's a problem, we fix the problem, we move on, we go to another city, there's a problem, we fix the problem, we move on.
Yeah, Kino's journey was great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of a hard act to follow.
It really does. It really does. It's a hard one for Amazon to follow, to be fair.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Good. Yeah. I guess that'll be it for that one. There's two that I don't have pictures for, and the first one is the slime one. So I will go ahead and pull that one up.
Slime one?
Yeah, so the multicolored slimes.
Oh. The season 2 of the By the Gods or For the
By the
Gods.
grace of the gods.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll do
Oh my
that one
God.
and then one more, and then we'll go back to the.
I absolutely love this show.
Nice.
There is nothing. It's not an action-packed show. It's not a very deep, thoughtful show. This would be like if I was like 12 again, and this was this was like the Saturday morning cartoon. I would watch the shit out of this every Saturday morning, because it's a nice feel good type show. Like, there's no real big. It baffles my mind. It baffles my mind truly, because I've always been taught as a writer, as a story creator, and stuff like that. You have to have your protagonist, you have to have your antagonist, and you have to have a problem that your protagonist is trying to solve for, while your antagonist gets in the way or tries to hinder the protagonist for. Like, that's the basic setup for any sort of story, as far back as I can remember. That's not here. It's not. If there has been any sort of quote unquote slice of life, this is it. It's like all we're doing is we're going through this guy's life in another world as a slime tamer, basically, or he's a tamer, but he just happened to have a bunch of slimes because that was the first creature he came across in the very beginning. Um, and he's just living his life. He's just doing his thing. He amazes some people sometimes because, yeah, he's more powerful than he has a right to be. And he's constantly coming up with like new ideas or new ways to use slimes and stuff like that. It's still cool. I'm still thoroughly enjoying it. I think it's just an amazing, feel good, just, I enjoyed, I would say this. This came on every Sunday. I enjoyed the fact, well, for two reasons. I thought one was kind of funny because the show being called, By the Grace of Gods, so we're talking about gods, and it happened on a Sunday, and I'm like, that's kind of ironic that you guys brought it out on a Sunday for that very reason. But
funny.
the other part of that being is like on the days that I had the weekends off, and I knew like Monday I'd have to go back to work or whatever, having this on a Sunday was a nice way to chill, relax, have a nice little story, make me feel all nice and warm and fuzzy on the inside. And then I'm like, all right, now I got to go to bed and then start, start my week over again, kind of thing. I still enjoyed it thoroughly. Like every single time, I think there was not a single time I rolling my eyes or, thinking, oh my God, what the hell am I watching? It's a kid with slimes, but it's still freaking cool. They're adding more characters into it. He's meeting more gods. He's traveling to other cities now, meeting other people. He's already met a merchant from another town who, if going by all anime tropes, we should all think that he's the bad guy because he's got those slits for eyes or whatever. And you're like, Come on, dude. Are you good? You bad? What's going on here? So far he's been good though, so that's fine.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, again, I think this show is such a warm-hearted, wonderfully just feel-good, relaxed type show, and I think I would recommend Dungeon to a great many people. I don't think there. I would obviously think that there'd probably be some people who wouldn't go for it simply because some people aren't into like all that action, violence, and just all that crazy stuff that was going on. This would be a type of show I would recommend to everybody. I don't care what genre you like to watch. I don't care if you've never even watched anime. Go watch this anime. I think it is going to be one that you're just going to be. Whereas with Dungeon, I was sitting here screaming and yelling at the screen. With this one, by the grace of God, I literally was smiling and just a nice warm, just like, oh, that's all right. And I caught myself doing that a time or two, and I'm like, all right, that's weird in any other prefix or situation if it hadn't been for the fact that I just watched a nice cut moment with on here or whatever, you know. So yeah, it's fun. It's very entertaining. I think it's just people. God, you have to go watch this thing. You especially go watch this thing. I know Kiki would agree with me on that too.
Yes, I think she actually likes this show.
Yes, she does,
Yeah.
and I know why. Again, it's just like yeah, they have their little problems in every day-to-day life routine or whatever, but it's just it always puts a smile on my face just to see things just go into play as how they're supposed to be, or anyways.
Do you think there's a lot of story that they could tell?
Oh, huge amounts.
Okay.
Huge amounts. I already know there's going to be another season. There's going to be another season. So the only time I'm ever iffy about saying like another season in regards to that is usually when it's only had the one season.
Yeah.
Because if it's only had one season, even if it was a phenomenal anime, that doesn't mean it's going to get another season or if it's going to get another season anytime soon.
Yeah.
The fact that this has now gotten two seasons and it as good as it is, I'm like, they're definitely continuing it. There's no doubt in my mind they're continuing it. And I'm all here for it. So.
Good. All right. The next show we're going to be talking about is reverse of Dungeon, where you were a season ahead of me, and now I've caught up. And for this show, I was a season ahead of you, and now you're a season ahead of me.
Which one are we talking about now?
I don't.
Oh, yes. God, this show is so fun.
That's what I. There we go.
Yes, this show is absolutely amazing in so many ways.
Both of you. Don't let her get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. Season
There
2.
is another one I forgot to mention to you before. I do want from this level. There's one more I want to talk about from this last season since we're doing like the weird ones. I forgot to mention that I watched it because it was one of those that I kind of like sporadically out of nowhere watched, and I watched like the whole season almost at one time. It's the Farming Life one. Which one was that?
Oh, Kiki's telling me to watch that one.
Yeah.
I thought it was this upcoming season, but I didn't know it was this last season.
We'll talk about it here in a minute, or after we get done with this one.
Okay.
And here again, I'm gonna say this. As much as I was talking about the God by the Grace of Gods being just a feel good type anime to watch kind of situation. I kind of feel like this one is also one of those feel good type anime situations. Because there's no stakes with her. So far, there's been no real stakes. Like okay, here's the thing. At the end of every episode, they have that like scrolling text of like people messaging on like a chat board or something like that. about like, oh my god, did you see the latest on this video game? And then all of a sudden they'll say something about her and her group, and be like, oh, what are they doing now? What have they gotten themselves into? Or yada yada yada. And I'm like, the fact that they can essentially meme themselves about this and go, yeah, we're funny because she's gonna do some wild and crazy shit, and no one understands how she does it, or for some reason it works in an unexpected way. I'm like, yeah, there's no stakes. She's gonna overcome, she's gonna overpower, whether she intends to or not. It's just, what new things are we adding to the arsenal of her already like ginormous arsenal to begin with?
Okay.
I just so the devs of the game are like, what? So they see her and her friend Riza both have pets, so they're like, what if we had everyone get pets? And they basically, on one of the levels that came up, they're like, there's hidden pets for everybody, and everybody can now get pets. So they're like, yay! Now she's not going to be overpowered just because her and her friend are the only ones who have pets. But then what ends up happening? She finds a scroll that essentially evolves her pet, so he becomes more powerful. And then it's like, she's going to get some materials for her friends, and ends up coming across some giant sea monster, which she uses her old tactic of, I'm going to eat it. And then because of that, she defeats the sea monster, and all of a sudden can transform like one of her arms into tentacles, which freaks all the other girls out inside their club. The first time the first time she shows that off, they're all just like looking at her sickening and like, why? Why do you have tentacles? That's wrong. I love the fact that now the devs have someone watching over them, and they all like jump because she'll be like, they'll be the lady who's now overseeing them is like, so what has Kaede done this time? And they're like, and everyone's like, oh god, no, don't tell her, it's bad. So and then like they have a competition where all the other guilds are going like against each other, and they're like, we have a brilliant idea. We're going to like it's a 3-day event, and like on the beginning of the third day or the beginning of the second day, we're going to every time everyone built their own little fortresses. So they're like, what we ended up doing is we squished the map together, so some people lost their fortress, and then on top of that, we're going to basically teleport each one of their characters from every guild into separate locations, and some of them are going to meet people from other guilds and this, that, and the other thing. The thing is, Kaede and her guild are friends with like a whole bunch of other people from other guilds. So when they met up, they're like, "Yo, hey, you want to team up, and that way we can go find our friends, and you can get with your guild, and I'll get with my guild." They're like, "Sweet, let's do it." And then at the end of it, like her guild's the only one who had a fortress still left, to defend themselves at the end of the night. And basically, everyone was like, "Oh, we'll go ahead and go off on our own way." And she's like, "Why don't you all come and with us, and you can bunk down for the night, and we'll just ride out the monster, because there's supposed to be like crazy monsters that come out at night that the devs send to them. They're like, we'll just ride it out together. Come on." And they all look at her like she's spouting insanity or whatever, and they all kind of look at each other and they go, it's not a bad idea. I mean, with all of us together like this, we can actually take out the monsters a little more handedly without tiring all of our resources out and everything. And everyone's just like, sure. So next thing you know, the devs tune in to go, oh man, we had such a great plan. We shrunk the map so it totally messed with people, and we teleported them all over the place when they first got up in the morning, so that way they're all away from other people. Oh, there's gonna be so many deaths. What's happening now? And the girl the woman dev who's like overseeing all of them now looks in and goes, they've all banded together and are currently partying, playing board games, inside of Maple Tree's fortress. And everyone's just like, what? Why? It was just like I say, it's so refreshing and so different in that regards. I just love it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love that show. I was like, you gotta watch it. Now I'm behind, so
yeah.
Yeah.
No, they've every season. So like, what is this, like the second or third season now at this point? Is it the third season?
Second season.
Second. Okay. So between the first season and the second season, it hasn't, like, you could put this one and you told me that the second season was the second core to the first season, and I totally would have believed you.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, we've just continued this, but we have a trajectory. We have a path. This is it. We haven't deterred from that. Like, the guys who make this are just like, I have a formula, and some people are like, hey, we could add this into the formula. Like, no, this formula works. We're going with it. She's going to become uber powerful on her own, and we'll do a whole bunch of crazy shit. All right, cool. Let's do it. So.
Yeah. I gotta get back to this one.
Yes, you do. The other one I was mentioning before was, I don't know if it's the same, Farming Life in Another World. Is that the one you were gonna?
Okay, cool. I was like, I only have the Japanese name. I did not look down at the acronym to see what the.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had
is.
the Japanese. I didn't know if you had the Japanese one, the Isekai non Biri Noka.
Yeah, I was like,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think this is it.
Yeah.
So,
I just know there were two farming ones that came out pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
This is the one that came out just recently, so.
Okay. Yes, Isekai no Miri no Farming Life in Another World.
So to start off on this, I will say, since we don't think we ever even really talked about this one.
No.
By Studio Zero G. Who has
kind
done
a
huge amount of stuff? Kind of a little bit.
I still didn't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't have them. I didn't have that one watched. Yeah, they've done a few things here and there, not a huge amount. So, this is kind of your stereotypical isekai. And again, a lot like the other previous shows that we've just recently talked about, I think this is kind of funny because, again, this is another feel good, just kind of like we're just going through the motions. Everything's going to turn out great. No one's going to care situation. So the story is life cut short by illness at just 39 years old. Machio Hiraku knows not to take simple blessings for granted. When a godlike figure given a chance to live again, Haruku has only the simplest of wishes for his new life: to be healthy, to live peacefully, to speak the local language, and to spend his days as on an idyllic farm. Fresh air, sunshine, honest work, and good company combine to form the happy, peaceful existence Haruku has always dreamed of. So this takes place of a guy who's basically lived almost his entire life in a hospital bed. He's been terminally sick, terminally ill. He finally dies, and God shows up and takes pity on him and goes, "You lived your life in pain and suffering, and I would like to make that up to you by reincarnating you into this other world. What would you like? I'll leave it entirely up to you." And because he always lived in this box essentially of a room and never really left, he spent most of his days watching nature stuff on TV. One of it being, he saw, I guess there was a show where some celebrities would actually go out and do farming and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
his idea was, he's like, I'm tired of being sick, so I like to just have a healthy body. And then he's just like, and I want to live peacefully on a farm and be a farmer. And at first the god's like, well, I don't have the ability to deal with like nature and all the other stuff. He's like, let me give me 1 second, I'll find out. So he calls up another god, literally, and gets permission and goes, okay, so here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to teleport you to the world. I'm going to give you the healthiest, fittest body that we possibly could give you. And he's like, and I'm going to give you a tool, a farming tool, that essentially it becomes whatever tool he needs,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes. So if he
Swiss
needs
Army
a,
knife.
yeah, Swiss Army knife essentially for farming tools essentially. Yeah, so if he needs a hoe, it'll become a hoe. If he needs a knife to whittle something, it'll become a knife.
Swiss farming knife.
Swiss farming knife. That's it, yeah. So he starts off. What he doesn't realize is that the god made a miscalculation. He sent him when he gave him everything that he told him he was going to give him. The only problem is he sent him into what is affectionately known by those in this world as the Death Forest.
Oh my god.
But he doesn't know this. And now here again, he doesn't know the wildlife, he doesn't know the monsters, he doesn't know, he's from our world. He doesn't know anything about this world. So while going through the forest, he finds this ginormous tree, and he's like, well, that's going to be, I can see that for miles and miles along. He's like, I'm going to use that as my base point, so that way I'm going to build myself a nice little shelter around there, and this is what's going to happen. Um, and as soon as he does, he kind of gets to doing what he's doing. At one point, he gets attacked. He uses the farming thing to, I don't remember what farming tool he used, but he used it basically to kill whatever was attacking him. And then he's like, okay, I think I need some sort of defense to where I'm not gonna get like snuck up upon. So he like builds himself like this big moat around the village, essentially a little house that he's creating or whatever. And then at one point he's already been farming. He's got some food. He's got water kind of figured out. He's built himself a very rudimentary shelter. And he sees on the other side there is these two what look to be kind of wolf creatures on the other side. And he's like, but one of them looks hurt. Actually, they both look hurt. One a little more so than the other. And he's like, I can't leave them like that. He's like, well, let me put out my bridge and let me entice them with some food and see if they'll come over here and eat, and maybe I'll give them some water and stuff like that. At least kind of take care of them. They do. He does, and he ends up finding out that one of them was female and was pregnant. And because that they felt safest and they were still wounded, they stayed with him until she had the kids. Well, she has the kids, and eventually they go off, and then eventually they come back with fully grown adult puppies.
Hmm.
And now they're like, we like you, so we're gonna stay here. And he's like, I guess I have some guard dogs now. Unbeknownst to him, these things are fucking terrifying. They like breathe fire. They like can take out like big, like I think one person described like if a pack of them were ever to go after an army, they could decimate an army.
And they could speak English or speak.
No, they couldn't
No?
speak. They couldn't
Okay.
speak, but everyone knows what type of monster they are, and they understood normal tongue. They couldn't
Okay.
speak it, but they understood normal tongue.
Okay.
And like you would have, just for comedic relief, they would occasionally allow them to like you'd read their mind, essentially what
Uh,
words they're thinking in their mind. And at one point he's like, wait, because someone goes, you do know they breathe fire, don't you? And he's like, they breathe fire? And he looks over at one of them, and the other one just kind of puffs out some like a fire breathing technique or whatever. And he's like, I didn't know that. And he kind of looks over and going, how did you not know that? But it's funny to me because, he builds this civilization. He builds safety. He builds a community based upon no malice, no, there are elves that come to his village. There are um, demons who come to his village, angels that come to his village, like all sorts of species, dwarves, and everything come to his village.
Kind of like slime.
Kind of, but it's a very much so. They're like the reason they came is just because, like, he's not like making a utopia or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's not what his intention is. His intention is just to live a peaceful life. And I think because that is his intention, those around him, he's gathering people around him only because there are others who want that as well. And they see that peacefulness and it's like paradise to them. Um and it is just absolutely hilarious, the interactions and some of the things. Because I guess in order to, when the god figured out that he had sent him to the Death Forest, he tries to help by allowing that farming tool to become a like super high powered weapon, essentially, like a throwing lance. Like you'd almost figure like the lance of Longinus, like uber power kind of situation, and it will return to him. He can
Okay.
throw it however many distance, and it's going to come back and return to him,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Thor's hammer, basically.
Yeah.
But it's funny because a freaking dragon, or no, is he a dragon or wyvern or drake? Some big giant flying lizard comes and attack, and everyone's like freaking out, like, "Oh my god, it's gonna destroy our village, and everything's gonna have." He wants to defend, and that's the first time it comes out. He literally throws the spear, and it just makes this giant hole inside of this freaking flying lizard, and it just drops dead. And everyone's just like, "Oh." You later find out from the goddess of the nature that had given the other god the tool to use, that spear is never supposed to be used by humans because it drains your life for the power that it holds. But
Oh.
because he's uber healthy, he could fire that thing off like hundreds of times, and it never affects him.
Oh my god.
And then like the demons get wind of the fact that there's a community. He asked one of the angels, I think, he's like, "Does anyone own this land?" And they're like, "Well, no one really owns the Forest of Death per se." They're like, "But it is in like the demon lord's territory." And he's like, "Oh, demon lord." He thinks that he's trying like he's like, I gotta make peace with him. I gotta approach him. This is after he kills that whole like flying lizard wyvern, whatever. And basically you get a sneak peek of what they're thinking. They get wind about what's going on. They get wind about him destroying that thing in one blow. They get wind about angels and these like hellhounds or whatever that live with him in his community. And then there's like this giant spider who's apparently like a demon spider from it that lives peacefully. Everyone's peaceful, but they're scary. So the demons are like freaking the hell out, going, "Oh my god, we have to make peace with these guys or they're going to destroy us." There's them over there going, "Hey, we need to like, maybe we can give them an offering and go, hey, can you leave us alone?" And they're just like, "Please, please." It's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. Um, It is kind of a harem anime, I will say, because most, if not all, most of the people who come to his town are all female. Go figure. But he's also one of those who is like, I do appreciate the fact that they kind of went that direction, and at the same time, he's at one point you get an internal monologue from him going, "Can we not have like males in this village too? I don't like being the only male in this village. Please." Yeah, so I don't know. It was fun. It was enjoyable. It was fun. Um, if I had to say, like in comparison to the previous isekai one that we were talking about, with the reincarnated from the king to the woman or the girl or whatever, I would actually rank this one above that one.
Okay.
Because again, just like with By the Grace of Gods, I looked forward to this one coming out every single time, and I laughed or enjoyed the shit out of every single episode I saw.
Okay.
Didn't wow me, wasn't absolutely stunning or amazing, but it was fun. It was fun. So
Good. Um, do you think there'll be another season?
oh, I hope so. Which probably means there's not, but I hope so.
I kind of hope so too, because then I'll give you a chance to like catch up on it. Because I know Kiki likes it and you like it, so I'm like, okay, I'll check it out.
2 series now that happened on this season that both Kiki likes and I like. This one and By the Grace of Gods, and you still haven't watched either one of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for that one. The next show we're going to be talking about is back to the list. The Ice Blade Sorcerer shall rule the world.
Okay. Here's the thing about this one. Okay. Here's the thing about this one. I feel like it had a lot of potential. Where I think it fell short was the same one with the Isekai one with the king turning into a woman sword person. It has a lot of history and a lot of things going on with it, but it was hindered by the fact that it only had 12 episodes to do it with.
Mhm.
It wanted to tell a story, it told a story, but I feel like there were a lot of parts missing, a lot of things glossed over, and that feelings and emotions that were should have taken longer to come about came about that much quicker because they couldn't take the time to flesh it out as much. You know, characters were interesting, powers were interesting. I mean, the kid's the ice blade sorcerer. He makes blades out of ice. If I had to connect anything else, someone else's power with his, I would say he kind of reminds me of what is that one captain from Bleach? That is Rukia's brother or whatever. You know what I'm talking? No, you have viewers out there who've watched Bleach. You know what I'm talking about. That is what I would equate him to, which I have not seen someone use an ability like that before, and it was very interesting. Um, the lady in the background who uses fire, yes, she does use flames and stuff like that, but her her way advanced ability was actually something interesting. She literally would turn, like all of a sudden these magical butterflies would be around her, but it's butterflies because it's using that whole thing. If a butterfly flaps its wings in Japan, it will cause causality, probability, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So like she would dodge attacks because someone would be coming in for an attack or someone would shoot off an attack and a butterfly would get in the way and all of a sudden instead of the trajectory going straight on, the trajectory would shift or they would move or she would move or some others, like that's a freaking dope ass ability. I don't think I've ever really seen someone use that in such a way. I'm like, that's fucking cool. Um, and they have like a good backstory too. The closest I could say for the main character, Ray White, is he kind of reminded me of what's his name from Full Metal Panic.
The main guy.
Yeah. I was say, you know what I'm talking about that one. You know what I'm talking about that one. That's because he was a military person, military quote unquote, that he never had really much of a childhood, and when something extenuate happened to him, he kind of was kicked out of the military because he couldn't do it anymore. So instead, the only thing he ever wanted to do was kind of live an ordinary life. So they took him to school. They let him actually be a school kid, which was cool. I'm cool with that. It's not. I haven't seen that sort of personality. Like I said, the only one I can actually equate it to is the main character in Full Metal Panic. That's it. Still cool though. I still enjoy it. I wish there was just more time given, because I think this could have been at least a B tier situation, but because of how rushed it was, it's more like a bottom C tier. It fell pretty hard because of it. Like there's so much lore, there's so much backstory, there's so much things that they could have fleshed out more, and it would have hooked you as the watcher so much better. But they couldn't do it, so it just fell flat, and it suffered for it. So it's not purposely bad. I've seen worse, but again, like if I'm just purely thinking about as far as like fantasy ones type situation goes, I would even put this under the one with the king that got reincarnated as a woman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantasy wise, I think what we've talked about so far, I would say By the Grace of Gods is my number one. The farming one's number two. The king that got reincarnated as a woman as a sword woman is number three. This would be my number four.
Okay.
So, well, and obviously move Dungeon to the top of that list, and then everyone else down. But I digress.
So did they try to set this up for like another season?
The main thing that they were working on got resolved, so I'm not sure. Could they? Yes. Did it really seem like it was setting up for that? No.
Okay.
We resolved what needed to be resolved, and I don't feel like there were really any loose ends per se, but they can easily make more loose ends to have this continue further.
Okay.
Like they're available, they're just not like prevalent enough to, like, in my mind, unless something else, some more see, that's the thing. Unless more information was given about any of these other things, then I'd be like, well, you brought this up, but you never went into it. But to me, I'm like, yeah, they mentioned something, and I'm like, maybe they'll make another season out of that. But at this point, I'm like, I kind of doubt it, because I don't feel like it's necessary. So,
Okay. Cool. All right. Next show we're gonna be talking about is uh Slow Life in My 30s.
okay, let me get my ranking here in my head again. So we got Dungeon at topping the list. We got the Slime coming in at number 2. We've got the Farm Life coming in at number 3. I guess this would be number 4. This would be number 4.
Okay.
So this was not bad by any stretch of the means. If anything, I think the only thing that this suffered from was it really leaned a little heavily on tropes. Like nothing really surprised me about what happened as far as the story progression goes. Because if you've seen enough animes, you're like, I know where this is going. I see where this is going. Yep. Mm-hmm. You're his father. Yep. Oh hey, look. Oh yeah, long lost father. Oh, you know. Um. So the story takes place with this guy. Basically, he's the aide to the 4 demon generals being fired because they're now the new 4 demon generals. The previous 4 demon generals loved the shit out of him, and all the demons in their city love the shit out of him because he's great. He works great. He cares about them. He's a great personality, but he can't do magic. And the only difference between humans and demons is the fact that one can do magic, one can't. Other than that, they look identical to each other. Like they're very human features and everything. There's nothing like outstanding about them that just screams demon or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird.
Well, so it goes without saying, if he's was raised as a demon, but he can't do magic, and magic is the only thing that makes a demon, what does that make him? Not a
Yeah.
demon. He's human, which we find out about that. And it's like, oh, he's actually human. And I'm surprised that he's like in the very first episode, he's shocked by the fact that he actually figures that out all of a sudden. And he's like, oh, I'm human? And I'm like, dude, how did you not put two and two together, my man? But then all of a sudden, he like every human has like these attributes that they have an aura around them that they can increase certain attributes. Some have better defense, some have better piercing skills, some have better um, like sword skills or stuff like that. He has max on every attribute. So he has hero level on every attribute. And I'm like, is he the hero that's supposed to kill the demon lord?
I was like, is that normal?
Well, even apparently the hero didn't quite have that high of stats. Like he was close to that, but not quite that high of stats. So he makes it to a town after being fired in a human world, becomes their adventurer in this town, does some things, figures out his powers and everything. And then we start getting the backstory from like the hero, because all of a sudden there's a new hero trying to go and kill the demon lord since the original hero got hurt. And you find out from the reason why the original hero went to go kill the demons is because he came home one time and found his wife was killed and his baby son, was missing. Well, guess who his baby son is?
uh,
Ah! That's the reason why his attributes are as high as they are, because he's a descendant of the hero.
I was I was about to call why the like the
His
reason
attributes are
why
as
he's over there.
yeah.
And the demon's like, oh, this dude's gonna kill me. How about I raise him as my own?
Well, see, that was what one yeah, see, that was what one of the demons had thought.
Yeah.
Not the demon lord, but one of his generals thought, "Hey, I found the kid of the hero. Why don't I raise him to go fight the hero for us?"
Oh, okay.
But then he dies and gives it to one of the other demon lords, but doesn't tell him who or what he is. He just says,
Oh,
"I have hidden something that can be
oh,
used against the hero," and
oh
then dies.
God. Kind of important to say.
Yeah, it's like you kind of missed important information there, my man. But again, is any of this surprising? This is all tropey stuff.
Yeah.
Fighting's cool. The characters are fairly decent, kind of predictable, but at least fairly decent. Um, Storyline is meh at best, only because again it's very tropey. I did like at one point the so the new demon generals. One of them is the son of a previous one, right?
Okay.
So the son gets called in before the demon lord, and when he calls in front of him, he is really like a little kid. Like he looks like he's 15, 16, the demon lord on the throne, kind of gangly looking, not a whole lot to him or whatever. Still intimidating, but not really like powerful looking. When the father goes, he's this ginormous like dragon creature. And I'm like, did he have a physical change? And the father looks at him and says, "What's the deal with your form?" And he explains, and this is one of the things I thought was kind of cool. He appears however strong the person who's watching him looks like. So he's powerful, but if you're weak, his appearance will be that he's weak. If you're powerful, his appearance will be that of his actual more truer appearance of how powerful he actually is. And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Interesting.
I like that. But here's the thing. The Demon Lord appears in 2 scenes in the entire 12 episodes, and that's it. And I'm like, one of the more interesting characters you have here, we barely talk with him. We barely see him. He barely interacts. I'm like, oh my God. And again, this also suffers from the fact that it only has 12 episodes. Because again, there's things that I'm like, you cut the shit out of that, didn't you? Like, he ends up getting control of the Mithril mine. Mithril being one of the more powerful ore resources or whatever that you could possibly work with in the fantasy realm.
The theme of this season.
Yeah. And he finds a blacksmith, a very talented blacksmith that can actually work with it, who moves to his town specifically because he's the core. Their town now is the core center of this being able to get mithril or whatever. And he does amazing things. He crafts him like a weapon immediately that can like shape shift and do all sorts of things because of how powerful his abilities are. It melds to his abilities, kind of thing.
Okay.
Which everyone is using, which is very cool. The very next episode, the blacksmith is dead. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? They're like, well, time progressed. And I'm like, how did he die? Why? We have this wonderful blacksmith here, and we're just gonna gloss over the fact that, like, he was old or something and just died? I'm like, you're taking the more interesting characters out of this whole thing and kind of like pushing them to the side and going, we know these are more interesting characters, but we need you to focus on these less interesting characters instead. I'm like, y'all suck. Still interesting. I still enjoy it, but at the same time, I'm just like, I feel like this could have been so much better. If this had been 24 episodes, if, they actually were able to take their time with it, do stuff with it, flesh out the characters more of the powers. I think this could have been like A tier, verging on like dungeon territory. Instead, we're like bottom B, high C kind of tier. So,
Cool, cool, cool. A lot of aspects of this series sound interesting.
it was, which is why I enjoyed it and why I watched it. But at the same time, it felt like a giant like letdown when we'd be like, in the next scene, and I'm like, wait a minute, I was still on the scene before this. What was going on?
I feel like there was a show that did that to me before.
They're like grabbing the curtain, being like, no, we're moving on to the next scene. And I'm like, you need to open that curtain back up because I was more interested in what was
Like,
going on.
hold on, I'm not done.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. The next show we're going to be talking about is Sugar Apple Fairy Tale.
So you watched the complete of this, huh?
Yeah.
How'd that go for you?
Uh,
You don't sound too enthused.
okay. I have to go through this show in 2 versions
Uh-huh.
because I believe that if you like romance shows like this, which are like romance shows that are just super pretty, super like they're just straight up for a female audience.
Mm-hmm.
I would say absolutely watch this, like 100% without that.
So what you're saying is it's for a very niche audience.
If you love romance, just with like, if you're okay with romance, then I'm like, it's a very good romance, but it may be too much romance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really like, if you just love all romances, then I'm like, yeah, you're in for a ride. This is gonna be great. Because like a lot of romance shows, it's like it's a school romance, so it's a school anime, but the main theme of it is like school,
Mm-hmm.
and the two like the main characters are in the romance. This show, it's an adventure show. It's but like the main theme is the romance. Like, um,
So it's a romance with a little bit of adventure sprinkled in on top of it.
yeah, and like the adventure is really really good, but
Get,
like the
get.
romance drives the show.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I talked about the show before, and it's basically it's in a world where there are these artisans that work with sugar. The sugar that they get are made from apples, so the apples are called sugar apples. Um, there's this whole process of like creating the sugar, like getting the apples, boiling it down, and like there's this whole artisan process to it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that process is revered and respected, and there are people who um, practice this trade and um, like live off of that trade. And there's like certain contests in specific kingdoms where you get high praise for your ability in that trade. Um, this girl uh, basically wants to honor her mother by traveling across or traveling to the one kingdom and um, participating in the it's not contest, participating in the competition and
Mm-hmm.
basically winning and like bringing the the medal back to kind of like honor her mother. Um, to make that journey, she needs some protection, so she ends up basically purchasing a warrior fairy. Um, throughout the whole season, everybody's like, "That's a companion fairy. There's no way a warrior fairy is that beautiful." Um, so it's like, yeah, he cute, whatever. Like, but yeah, it's this journey of like him. He has this history that you learn about halfway through, and you end up finding out why he is the way he is. And basically, she learns a little bit of that too, but then she also goes through the whole like just the way the world's set up. Like it's old school fantasy. So like there could be bandit like you'll be traveling. It's gonna take weeks or months to get to a certain place. And one day you may wake up and get attacked by bandits, and then your journey's over. So the world is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in towns, there's two different aspects. There's this hierarchy of humans own fairies. So fairies are property. And then there's like the kingdom hierarchy where it's like the kings and the dukes and duchesses and princesses and all that kind of stuff. Um, and depending on what town you're in, there may not be a huge hierarchy as far as like class and status goes, and it may be like a more a town that's more friendly to fairies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that like aspect to it wherever you go, and there's all different types of like fairies. There's like human-sized fairies, and there's like little holding your hand fairies, and Which you end up finding out later on is that fairies are born from a gaze. So basically, someone who's basically concentrating on a specific item in a certain way imbues that item with enough energy to birth the fairy. So like this guy,
Interesting.
yeah, it's like it's a cool way to describe how a fairy is born. Like the main guy in this show, he was born from obsidian. So it's like where you get like where he gets his strength from. There's other characters who are born from water. There's a fairy that gets born from blueberry. Like they just get born from all different types of things. And I would say the journey for this show is a really cool journey because the main girl, she like not only does she kind of go back and forth between am I going to go along with the people who own the fairies and treat them as second class citizens, or am I going to befriend this fairy? And even though I did purchase him, I don't want to keep him as my property. Once he finishes the task that I basically procured him for, then I will set him free as thanks. Kind of like like a genie.
Yeah.
And then there's also the like meritocracy of the whole sugar artisans, where the better you are, the more notoriety you can get, and the higher class of customers you can get, which raises your like class.
Okay.
But then there's also the whole patriarchy where it's like, oh, this is a man's job kind of thing. And there's certain pockets of the world where like it's very, very hard for women to move up in the hierarchy that's set up in that town. So it's a very interesting journey that she goes across. She runs into a like issues the entire time, and it's you slowly see her working towards her goal, and um, it's a very, very good story. So, spoiler time. um, I yeah, this is a really, really nice romance. Basically, one of the reasons why the obsidian fairy is like as cold-ish as he is because like also fairies, they don't have like a regular human lifespan. They like he's like 100 and something years old. They say over 100. I'm like, I guess you don't really need to put a like specific number on it. It's like over 100 is good enough. So I'm like, fine.
I
But
mean, to be fair, it's like if someone were to ask you your age right now, would you be able to say accurately what it is, or would you have to actually take a moment to be like, I think most people at a certain given point in time, a number is just a number. You just start being like, whatever.
yeah,
I reached the important ages is like 21, or 18, 21, and then I think like something with 30. I remember. After that, it's just like, yeah, it's whatever. I'm old enough for everything.
yeah. So there's been other stories where like with the characters like, oh, I'm like 1,300 years old, so I've seen like many lifetimes go by, and like that's why they're kind of like bitter and like, but also very smart and stuff like that. So for him, it was like over 100, and it's like I get that because he's seen some people like grow up and pass, but then is it 200? Like I guess it doesn't really matter. So I'm kind of like, I guess it doesn't matter to like put an exact number on it, but it was an interesting like way to say it because usually if there's a character who's over 100, they're like, oh, he's like 196 or something like that. They'll like emphasize like what the year is, but um Yeah, so basically the person who I guess who gave birth to him through obsidian, um, he basically watched her grow up and then she got sick and passed.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. And so she didn't grow old. Like she passed when she was young, like a young adult. So for him to come across the main character as like almost a young adult,
Mm-hmm.
like adult as in of that time, but like as far as like modern times, like almost an adult. Um, it's interesting for him to like be hesitant to like get close to her because he's like, I've gone through this before. Um, but he does see her drive and like her talent and like he wants to take care of her. Also, he's obligated to. So um it's kind of his like going back and forth between like do I don't know. It's like I don't know, just struggling with his feelings. And then also trying to understand the world too, because he spends most of his time hating humans because most of the humans around suck.
Mm-hmm.
Um so his character is very interesting. Um the places that they go are there's also one other artisan. He comes from like a wealthy family, so
Mm-hmm.
his life is easier no matter where he goes because he has connections through his family to everything he decides to do. It's like, oh well, you know my uncle. He's like, oh yeah, your uncle's great, blah blah blah, and he just gets through things easily. At the beginning of this,
Of course. So he's just uber
it
famous.
was like well connected because like not famous to where people would notice him, but like well enough
It's
connected to where he can,
he's
yeah,
getting the movie star treatment essentially.
yes, and because of that, he's very arrogant. So like
Of
you get
course.
introduced to his you get introduced to his character as like he's trying to propose to the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to propose like he's just that's basically his like go-to like thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I hated him at the beginning of the series. I'm like, would you stop saying that? Like it's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed like dumb because that's the one thing he kept going to. And I don't know if it was like it works on other girls or something like that. So that's his like line and try to pick her up. But she's like a strong character, so she's like not doing that. He doesn't know what to do other than to keep trying that same line. But um yeah, later on in the series, basically she leaves
Mm-hmm.
and goes on her journey. He follows her, and they end up meeting someone that's higher up in the like artisan society,
Mm-hmm.
and they get tested, and because they find an inn, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I'll pay for your stay if you can do this one thing." And he like gives them a test, and it's fucking rude. like like they compete, and he's like, this, you're copying someone's style. And he smashes it. And he's like, this, you're blah, blah, blah. And just smashes that. And he's like, enjoy your stay, like leaves. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
they both take that to heart and like improve their skills. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, you could have,
Given a little forewarning.
yeah, like, they're like, just expressed it a little bit softer, like sugar coated or
Yeah,
something.
he's not the. He doesn't strike me as the type of person to ever sugarcoat anything.
I was like, Jesus. So
I'll tell you exactly the way it is.
yeah, so he like disappears. And then they go from there to the first competition. Um, because basically she's not fully um like developed as a artisan, she doesn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And like her whole goal of like getting the medal, honoring her mother, and like sending her like memory off in a certain way doesn't go through.
Of
The
course.
other character, yeah, the other character, he doesn't. I don't know if he. Oh, on their journey, the guy who's been proposing to her this whole time, um, backstabs her.
Oh, good lord.
He, the shady piece of shit. He basically, because they're going in two carriages or wagons or whatever, that weird box house that I explained last time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he basically, overnight, scares off her horse,
Of course.
um, and puts his horse on her carriage, goes and gets some wolves, and like trails them back with some kind of bloody meat or whatever.
Wait, so is this before or after she rescued him from the traitor that had imprisoned him?
Oh no. So I'm sorry. So the guy that's the other sugar artisan, he is a regular person that was in her village that was proposing to her. It's not the fairy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
God, these love triangles stories.
Yeah. so
Confusing.
yeah, so basically he like goes and attracts some wolves with some like a heart or some chunks of blood and meat. And like as she's finding out what's going on, he like runs past, or he has his fairy run past her, or he does it and like throws the bloody meat on her. They take her yeah, take her carriage. I'm just gonna call it a wagon. They take her wagon, run off, and she doesn't have enough of what she needs to like set up the other wagon to chase after them. So basically, she's done. She's not gonna make it there in time for the contest. And what ends up happening is the fairy, he, she had on the journey, she had promised him that she was gonna make him like his own like creation. And he's like, I would like my creation right now. And so she makes him this like really nice thing, and then he's like, he like grabs her and sits her in the front, and he's like, "We're going." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "You're gonna this as the contest thing." So they get there, and the reason why she didn't win that year is because of the big fuss of like them two getting into an argument of like who stole whose sugar and all that kind of stuff, and it makes this like crazy scene that kind of like embarrasses the king and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, you know what, we're calling it off this year. So they plan to go again the next year. What ends up happening is the crops of the sugar apples are not so great. There's bitterness to having anybody be able to like um, become an artisan and like do their own crops and stuff like that. And because of the embarrassment, I'm pretty sure that like messed up like businesses, like lines of whatever, because like the prestige of like having.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, he
basically, it's
just like
become
that.
yeah. So basically, it becomes this huge monopoly, and this one group takes ownership of all the apples. And the only way that you can actually do that, like participate, is one, you have to work for them. Two, you only can work on your own things at night. And then three, you have to get the approval. So basically, she goes to try to start. She goes basically what she decides to do the next year is to go to some of the other artisans that she has known in the past to kind of like get like what is it? It's like you work under like a master, you get apprenticeships or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she ends up finding someone who's well connected, and he informs her on what's happening, and she's like, "Oh, I guess I have to work for these people now." And of course, the group of people is all guys, and it's this huge industrial, like they're mass producing the sugar that everybody's going to be using, and of course, because they're all jerks and it's mass produced, the product is like inferior. So Yeah, it's this huge thing because she knows some people and because they know how well she did the last year because of the first guy that she like did that test with. He was actually the judge of the competition that they had that whole mess with. So he knows her and he approves of, like, he gets her in the door because the first person she tried to talk to, he's like, "Oh, a woman, blah 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 blah," and it's like just being a total. And the judge comes by and he's like, "No, she's good, let her in." And then also he's like, "Oh, and you can't bring your companion fairy." And by that time, um, if for the reason why the fairies hold on, like stay, um, and basically obey you is because you keep their one of their wings. And after the journey, she like took them. He took like he helped her arrive safely at the other thing. At the end, she's like, "As payment, here's your thing back." And because I guess he was in love with her already by then, he stuck around. So she's like, "It's not my fairy anymore. Like, he's free." So they made it a weird exception that he could stay around while she's like working for this company and trying to at night build her own thing so she can compete in this year's competition. There, you find the only other girl that's like in this place, and she is like just spoiled rich girl. Gets to do whatever she wants, has all the money, has the connections, and she sees the fairy, and she doesn't care who owns him or anything, and she's like,
she just wants him.
"Yes," and
Yeah.
she's like, "How much? I want to buy you." And he's like, "Of course not interested," and then insulted, and then
John
also,
Wicket.
huh?
John Wicket. Not for sale.
Yeah, and then he's also like emboldened because he's like, I'm not owned by anybody. So like he gets to just brush her off.
Yeah.
And like, of course she's just infatuated by him. So she's like,
won't leave him alone.
no. And like every time she's turned down, she gets this like sad look in her face that like if you didn't know anything else about her and just saw that face, you'd be like, "Oh, what's wrong?" But because I know her, I'm like, "Fuck you. I don't like you." Um, and yeah, so she's trying all these different things, and like she finally comes to terms that like it's just not gonna happen. Like it's just not, and she's not gonna give up, but she's just gonna hold out hope. And so right when they start making their entries for the competition, some of the new people that she met in this one company, you start learning about them and where they came from and like their histories and stuff like that. So of course you're like, okay, these are gonna be the two top competitors, the main girl and this new guy, because of all this history and all that kind of stuff and his skill. He makes a statue of the actual fairy because he knows that the judges favor fairy based uh,
Oh
create.
well. I mean, I'd hate to say that's cheating, but he's just playing to his audience.
Oh, exactly. So he's like, "This is why this is my subject," and he like passes on the information, and I'm like, "Dude, you're good. You know what? If you win, I wouldn't even be mad." Like,
no, I mean, it's someone who actually takes the time to actually like I don't know, figure that out or takes is actually in depth enough to know that. I wouldn't be mad at either.
yeah. So I'm like, you know what? You're a good guy. So, what ends up happening is one night. So basically, because the company is using like these big giant vats, and it's like a really industrial like production to make the sugar that they're making.
Yeah.
It's very hard for her to like do the job, so she's struggling with everything, and everybody's like, "Why is there a girl here?" But especially the other girl, and she's like, "Why are you doing this job? This isn't a ladylike kind of thing," and all that crap. So, um, basically there's animosity building up, and especially the guy who like wanted to kick her out day one, he's like, ooh, just brewing. um Eventually he comes up with the plan to like abduct her and throw her
Oh,
hands
because
into
that
boiling shit.
always works out very well.
Yeah, and like his plan was to like throw her hands into boiling sugar so she can't create her creation. So,
Uh,
so,
oh my god. I haven't watched this, but just from your description, it already gives me a freaking headache.
so
Jesus.
yeah, so the the guy who had been proposing to her from the beginning, he's also there, of course, because of his connections, and he is struggling to make his thing, and um he's also like hooked in with the guys who are like plotting to like injure the girl, and because he doesn't want to go, like he's it's like I thought he was dumb, and then I thought he was a like trickster asshole, and then he's like, but I won't go that far. So he ends up turning into like the kind of good guy. So
Oh,
like,
so he has moral standards at some point.
so so he so right before something bad could happen, he like runs off and tells the fairy. The fairy comes in and like saves her, and she like has to beg him, beg him not to kill everybody. Um, so then that this whole chaos happens, and like the leader of the company like gets involved, and he's like, what happened? And like basically the guy who was in charge of it said that the guy from her hometown concocted the whole scheme, and he stepped in and saved her. And then, then when she talked to the head of the company, he was basically said, my son told me that the guy from your hometown tried to do this whole thing. And she's like,
Oh,
that's not what happened at all.
my brain hurts already. That's just there's too
So,
many this guy and these guys and that girl and these guys, and I'm like, oh my god.
yeah, so she
Where
was like,
where did the romance go? You were talking about a romance before.
yeah.
This is like a murder whodunit mystery almost.
Yeah. So basically, she tried to correct him, and some of the fairies tried to correct him too. And basically, was like, "No, your son is the reason why this happened." And he's like, "How dare you speak of my son like that? You and your friend, get the hell out of here!"
Surprised he even remembers he has a son.
Yeah. Oh my god. So then they both leave, and he's like, "And take the sugar that you made with you as a to cover this inconvenience." So that night, she packs up and heads out.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the competition. Um, they, she has this amazing, like she's gonna win. Like it's like a like no chance that she's not. Um, and then um, you end up finding out a couple things that lead on to something else later, as far as like fairies being able to taste the difference in sugar. And basically they go to the competition, they do like that, like everybody reveals their thing and everybody sees her and they're like, oh, and it's like, yeah, blah blah blah. And
I survived. I was hiding the whole time.
so what ends up happening is, for you to win, you need to show off and have the best you have to have the best piece, and then you also have to prove that you are an actual sugar artisan and you can actually make the sugar, and you have to verify that the sugar that's in your barrels, you already know what's happening. That's in your piece. So when they go to look at it, the judge, who is also well, the people who also help the judge choose, is the head of the company, and he's like, "Oh, this sugar doesn't look right." And of course, the dude's son stole his sugar and replaced her sugar with the crappy sugar, and
Mm-hmm.
she gets disqualified. And before she leaves, because fairies can taste the difference in sugar,
Mm-hmm.
he breaks off a piece of her piece, and it says, "Is this made from the sugar that's in this barrel?" And because
No.
So then they don't know where her sugar is. So what ends up happening is, guess who saw the whole thing play out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bridget,
Yeah.
freaking
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah. Oh
And
my God.
because she knows, and she's like, and I'm not telling. Guess who steps in and gives her what she wants so she can do the right thing?
The other, the fairy,
Yes, the
yeah.
obsidian fairy is like, if I give you my wing, will you tell the truth? And she's like, I'll think about it. And he just throws his wing at her.
Don't lose it.
She goes up there, tells the truth. The girl wins. He's proud of her. The son gets revealed for who he actually is. All this mess ensues. And Bridget, the jerk, is getting into her carriage, and she's like, come on. And before he leaves, the main character runs up to him and she's like, I did it. And he's like, I'm proud of you. And he's like, I have to go. And then he gets into Bridget's carriage and rides off.
Is that the end of it? Is that the end of it?
And
I'm just serious. Like, wait, are we having to drive off into the sunset trope for the end of it? What the fuck?
There may have been more that happened after it, but all I saw was red, so I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay. So they're
I was so fucking upset.
I imagine.
And I knew that I knew something was gonna happen at the end of the show because Kiki watched it also like a week before I did, and I got a wall of angry emoticons, and I'm like, "What's going on? All right, what's going on?" And she's like, "Why did they end the show like this?" And she's like, "Ah," and I'm like, "Don't tell me what show it is or what happened, because I'll probably figure it out." I was like, but why? And then she's like, oh, I found out there's a second season, so I'm not as mad anymore. And I'm like, I don't know what any of that means, but okay. I'm glad you're in a better mood.
Yeah.
And then I watch Dungeon, and I'm like, that's the main thing I have to watch. I gotta get caught up on Dungeon. I'm like, oh my god, Dungeon was so great.
Yes, it was.
But worn out, so I need something that's kind of just not important. So I was like, you know what? How about that I'm Your Sister Now show? Let me go ahead and watch an episode of that. And it was just too silly, like just too off the wall, too not what I was like needing at the moment. So I was like, you know, what was that show that Kiki was watching? The whole thing. And then I'm about to snap my remote in half. I'm about to punch through my monitor. I'm like, I am not okay.
I did not get the ending I wanted.
I was like, you know what? Let me watch another show that I'm Your Sister Now. And after that, I was calm. So I'm like, okay.
Well, see, I understand why you didn't complete quite that many because you got dicked over by one of them.
Yeah. So, for those of you who have finished the show already, fucking Bridget. Oh. She better be glad she's not real.
Is that going to be now the next thing that we start saying for whenever we get exasperated at anything? It's just like, fucking Bridget.
It may be. But oh.
We'd be like, hey man, we were working over there and this little one lady came over and she started complaining. Fucking Bridget.
I'm like getting angry again. But yeah, so the show had some interesting characters. A lot of the characters had like interesting like arcs. There were some cool reveals where like the jerk that you see at the beginning, you meet him later and he's like, oh, I was a jerk for a reason. You've learned. And I'm like, so fuck you still. I hate you. And then good guys don't always win. It's like,
I mean, it didn't really sound like that. It sounded like there was like a giant freaking headache from hell just to be able to get from one end to the other.
So yeah, it was like it was the most like roller coaster, like, and it was like, I can't really say roller coaster romance. The roller coaster romance is like things keep influencing the relationship. And like with this one, like everything was fine until the end. And I'm like, and then they end the show. And they're like, no, you don't. Give me another episode.
You want this? No, you can't have that.
Maybe I'll make a season 2. I'm like, who's in charge of this? Bridget?
If you're lucky. Yeah, Bridget's one is in charge of the whole thing. But just like, I'm tired of being killed. Thank you. I'm good.
That is Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. It is a very, very, very well executed show.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yep. Okay, so how long are you gonna have to wait for this? Which season is this? This is summer. Summer season. That's when your next season is gonna come.
Summer? Oh, so like in not this season, but next season?
Yep.
Oh, good. That's already on my list. Like, yeah, like there's no way I'm not continuing it.
Actually, no, it's just next season.
Oh.
We're currently in the spring season.
Yes. So yeah, the show we're talking about right now is the winter season. We're in spring, so it'll be starting in like July or June. July. But yeah. So, God. Yeah.
Think you can wait that long?
Huh?
Think you can wait that long?
I can wait. Like if like watching I'm Your Sister Now was like enough of a fuse to just put out that flame. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So the next show and the last show we're gonna be talking about is campfire cooking in another world with my absurd skill.
Did you watch this?
Yes.
Freaking love this show.
Yes. I was kind of hoping that we wouldn't talk about the farming one. When you brought it up, I was like, oh no, because Kiki said that they're similar.
No.
I think they're similar vibes, probably.
Similar vibes, but not similar, like they went in total different directions. I love this show. I think this show is so amazing. I think it's cool because of the cooking that he does and all that. I think it's kind of fascinating. It's just they put such a focus on that. I think it's kind of cool. But the background story that everything is going on around him is just hilarious to me.
Yes.
And I was gonna see that when we started doing this. Who is the voice actor behind Fell?
Oh, interesting.
I know I've heard that voice actor before.
Okay.
I'm super curious. Anyways, go ahead and say what your thoughts are started, and I'll come back when I see it.
So,
by the way, way to go Mappa for this thing too.
Yeah, I saw Mappa. I was like, hey, Mappa got enough money; they can start doing family stuff. Man, yeah, this I kind of wish I watched this after the last one we just talked about, because it would have been a great palate cleanser.
Yeah. I do know the guy who plays the voice actor for the for Fell is the same one who does Momonga.
That sounds familiar.
From Overlord.
Oh, the main guy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's the main guy from Overlord.
Interesting.
That's where I recognize his voice from.
That's funny.
Well, that's also interesting. He also plays Rengoku from Demon Slayer.
Okay.
I didn't recognize him from that. I don't think I recognized him from that. Yeah, the one I can recognize the most is, I mean, he's got a couple of different roles, but it's just Momonga from Overlord.
Overlord, nice.
Just to think that that character is in that wolf is hilarious. I, God.
All right, one question.
Yeah.
Are they messing up the economy and ecology of the world?
I don't. Economy, I don't believe so. Ecology, debatable. The only
They're
reason
like,
why
let's shock all the fish in the pond. And I'm like, y'all need to leave some.
the only reason why I say debatable is because so you might argue the point about the economy only because you could say that they're making changes to that in regards because um it's our main character who's the one who's introducing things from another world. So he's taking things from another world, adding them into this world, and now if he were doing that in mass, yes, that would fuck up the economy. But because he's only doing it in little spurts, I don't think it really is fucking up the economy. And the only reason why I debate on the ecology is because Fell is the one who's doing it. I feel like
He would kill that
even
amount of things
he
anyway.
would kill that amount of things anyways, just because it's Fell. The only thing that's debatable about that is because that one episode where he killed like 3 piles of monsters basically because of that is because he had been given the Wagyu meat.
Oh, yeah.
He might not have gone quite that far because of that. But he still fell, and he's still going to, fuck shit up.
Yeah. So I know from from listening to some people talk about hunting and everything that like if you either kill too many of the prey animals, then the predators will starve. If you kill too many of the predators, then the prey will overpopulate. So because you're saying that Fell would kill that many animals to begin with, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that the ecology is kind of like already balanced out for Fell.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
okay, that would make more sense. As far as the economy, I'm thinking more of the 5,000 gold that he now has in his pocket. Where did where did that come from? And who like
Well, obviously it's the city that's um the guild in the city that's paying him. So I don't think the economy is going to go potentially belly up or whatever, only because he's getting these things from most of these things from rewards for doing quests that have just been stagnant for too long, that no one can do or no one wants to do.
yes.
The other part of that is yes, he is getting money from the kills that Fell is doing, but I also feel like if Fell wasn't eating all of those things to begin with, some adventure might just come across the remains of what he has already and try to take it back to get it the reward for it anyways. So kind of maybe I don't know.
Yeah, so my main thing was like a bunch of times they're like, oh, we can't afford this. Now I'm like,
Well, yeah,
can't.
because he's killing things that I mean, the mithril lizard is like not seen in 400 years.
Yeah.
The rarity of that has got to be supreme, but you got to figure they now know where not only do they now know where a mithril mine is at, they now have access to it without the mithril lizard being there and them having to try to kill it. Because if the mithril lizard was still there, they'd never be able to mine that mithril out of there.
Yes. So I guess my main question is like, is it they're like we can't afford it because we don't have that amount of free cash to kind of just move around, and we have the money, it's just tied up, or you're taking all of our money and it's moving from.
No, I'm thinking they're just saying they don't have the amount of free cash that they would have to be able to afford that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a limit to how much they can give someone because essentially what he's doing is he's trading. They're not going to trade for something they can't afford.
Yes.
He's trading for all the bits and pieces. So it's not so much that he's getting money and he's not it's being tied up and it's all going to him. He's getting the money because they're getting magical parts and ingredients that they may never ever see in their entire lives.
And then there's a buyer for it for the reason why they want to get it.
Yep. It's not to say there might not be a buyer for the other things that he has, but the expense of it is so huge because they're trying. This is the problem with the barter system, right? How much it's going to what you trade for, or how much it has can vary depending upon the value you place on it. So they're placing a huge value on the Mithril Lizard.
Yeah.
And it's just not something that they can cover.
Yeah.
So that's just the way I look at it.
Okay. It was also nice to see that one like leather guy, he was like, I want like a snake skin, but like they keep outbidding me, so I can't get one. Yeah. So that was interesting. And then also,
I love his other familiar too. Sue is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Is it just me, or does anyone else now want a little plush of Sue?
Oh yeah. Like you have like the regular one, and then you have the pew pew one with the two arms sticking out.
I love how you made that too. The pew pew one. Oh, he's just too damn adorable. Yeah. But master, I want to go pew pew.
It's like Uncle Phil. He's like, don't call me Uncle.
And then he starts crying. He's like, look what you did. Made you getting upset about him just because he wants to call you Uncle.
Phil's over here like, I'm hungry. And he's like, you need to wait. He's like, I'm hungry. And he's like, I'll cook you some food right away.
Let's get to you right now. Yeah, I love that. It's freaking adorable. Oh, and then the goddess characters.
Oh. I want more character out of them.
Yeah, but I think for right now, I'm okay with what they've given us so far.
Yeah.
And I especially love the water one too.
Oh. Who's like,
where she's like, there's like everyone's giving him blessings or whatever, and she's just like, but he doesn't have an affinity for water. I can't give him a blessing. And then all of a sudden she starts crying. Like, look what you did! And I'm like, oh shit.
Like, give it to Sue. Give it to Sue. He's like, oh yeah, good job.
She's like the little sister of the goddesses. Everyone's just like protecting her. I love it so much. Oh god. Yeah, I like the fact that like he's getting all these minor blessings and his familiars are getting like greater blessings.
One thing that I noticed that this show is maybe doing differently than other shows do, and I don't know how. I want to say I don't like it because it's something that I look forward to, and it kind of turns into something that's kind of weird. So, like, are they using actual brands? Because
see, I don't know.
Yeah, with one thing triggered my mind to where I think it ends up turning into product placement, which is less fun than going to McDonald's.
Mm.
The Pepsi that he had, it was the actual Pepsi logo, and the bottle actually
I
said
was
Pepsi.
surprised about that. I generally was, but at the same time, I don't think that it took anything away from the story. I think what they did was they're like, hey, in the story, he's gonna start be drinking soda here because he wants to get some caffeine. The others are gonna get interested in it too, and they're gonna want to drink some of the soda. So we have sodas is what we need. I don't care what soda, but we need soda. Can we maybe add in something that would give us maybe a little more money or whatever as maybe product placement? But it's not see, I think of good product placement versus bad product placement. If that was their intention, and I'm not saying it was, but I'm saying if that was their intention, I look at that as good product placement. They had an opening, it made sense in the story, so they used it.
And it was kind of like a one-time thing where it didn't like keep
And
showing up.
we've never seen it again after that.
Yes.
We've never seen it again after that. Now, there's bad product placement, and I'll give you an example of that.
Transformers. Oh, sorry.
Well,
what?
I'll give you an older one, Terminator 2.
Okay.
And it's actually the same thing, Pepsi.
Ah.
Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's either Pepsi or Coke. I know it's one of those.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was Pepsi though, because when they're in the lab where they're making Skynetter, basically, there's a guy who basically is holding a can of some soda, and he's holding it out. I mean, he couldn't have it more like unless he did this, and I'm like, okay, that's product placement. And then later on, there's a dude when John's running from the Terminators, he's in the back of the hallways or whatever. There's a guy carrying another can of the soda. And then as John Ring comes around a corner, in the corner you see the vending machine with the sodas, and they kind of linger on it just a little bit. I'm like, okay, guys, you're beating us over the head with it. Let's stop this.
Yes.
So, if they're doing product placements on that regards, in that at least they did it well. If they're doing product placements for like Japanese things, like maybe some, here's the thing. Everything that they've shown, with the exception of Wagyu, is actually pretty common things, I want to say. Nothing like they didn't add an ingredient because they wanted to add another product into it. Mm-hmm. They put the ingredient there because it's a common ingredient, and it makes sense in the realm of the storyline that a guy from Japan would know about this ingredient and be using it. Mm-hmm. So any of the Japanese stuff in that regards, it hasn't seemed weird to me, only because, and I mean, I'm not from Japan. It's not my home country. I can't say for sure, but I think even someone from Japan would look at that and go, "Yeah, that makes sense. I would use the same thing." Or even someone from Japan would go, "Hey, I have some of that in my shelf," or something like that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that, I don't feel like it's bad. I feel like it's just taking advantage of what's already there.
Yes. So, my history with product placement in shows is the fake product placement, where Pringles would be some other name that sounds like Pringles, but it's not actually Pringles. Cola, McDonald's, and
Yeah,
I have yet to see. Maybe I've seen one McDonald's, but I've seen tens of other like versions of McDonald's. And you're like, that's McDonald's.
Here's the thing that I say, right? In the time that we've seen that sort of thing, right? Do you think that anybody outside of a very small group in Japan would have taken anything anime-wise, like realistically, or even necessarily cared. I think the fact that we're seeing products and actually probably realistic products in animes is because now those products are going, hey, animes are kind of popular. I bet you the thing that we do with movies, we could probably do with them too.
Because like they're doing it anyway, they're just misspelling our stuff.
Yeah, so let's just do it. Let's give them the as long as they're going through the proper legal channels and everything. Be like, hey, let's give them the rights. Let's let them use our product, and they're not using it in a negative fashion. They're not using it to murder somebody or something like that. They're actually consuming it appropriately. And hey, they're making a joke about how Pepsi Cola can make you burp.
Yeah.
You know, that is all in good fun. That I think is appropriate, and I think it's a sign of the changing in the times to where maybe we're not going to get any more of those whackdonalds, prongles, pony, um,
Baki.
baki. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we're done with that. Maybe now people will actually start getting those actual rights, and to me, that actually works well with anime because now it adds more of an element of realism into something that's not.
Yes.
So by all means, unless they start doing it poorly and like beating themselves over the head with that shit, go for it.
Yeah. So my whole thing was to bring it up because it's like you said, it's a changing of the times. It's
Sure.
like the fake product placement that we've always seen. Like I've always enjoyed like how are they gonna spell McDonald's? Like I'll see a McDonald's in the show and I'm like, what are they calling it this time? And I'm like, nope, that's a bad name. Or that's good.
That'll get a chuckle
It's
out of you and be like, hey, that's funny. They made a spoof off of yada yada yada.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now, like even Pocky, like I think Pocky was the first time that I was like, oh, that's actually Pocky. Like it's the real name.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, I'm like, is that is that Pepsi? Like it's yeah. I'm starting to see like real products actually show up in anime, and it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree.
But yeah,
So I like the story so far. I like the characters. I like the action sequences. The main character, even though he has these, is gaining these powers and abilities, it makes sense that he's doesn't want to go out and battle because you could die. And you're not going to take somebody who's out on the streets, a normal everyday person, not a military person, not a martial artist or a fighter or any sort of thing like that. He's a college student was on his way to groceries or home from the convenience store
yeah.
and gets teleported to some world where monsters exist. Of course he's going to be like, I don't want to be anywhere near any of those fucking goblins. Fuck that.
So like, nah. You want to fight Gollum's
Yeah,
here?
you wanna find out. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's why I said I believe everything that you see, everything they've done so far, I believe it. I like it seems believable, realistic. I'm on board with it. Like, and then just the see, the fact that the main character gets so shell shocked over what Fel and Sue do, and then he goes back to the village and shows at everything they killed, and everyone they all of a sudden all those people get shell shocked over everything that they kill. I like the fact that he made the comment before of like, yeah, that's what I figured you guys would react like, because he's like, I reacted the same way. Freaks the shit out of me too.
Yeah. Um, I do like how Fell is like making sure that the guy is kind of taken care of and can protect them, like protect himself,
Mm-hmm.
because not only is like you're my meal ticket, but also I want you to be like, I'm not always gonna be here, because he actually said that once, and it's actually a cool aspect of Fell's character.
I agree. He puts on a front, but you could tell that he's got that caring personality deep down.
Yeah, and it's like every time he's like pushing the guy into a battle, he's like, he sees the battle, like the guy not pushing himself a little bit, getting a little cocky, and then he'll like throw in something there to change him. He's like, oh, well, that attack might not, that attack might break the barrier. And he's like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fun show.
It is. And, if nothing else I could say for this season, that there was a lot of really just fun type shows. Nothing was like over the top, Attack on Titan or, some other just uber fighting type situation. I mean, there's a few, but for the most part, a lot of them throughout this season was very much like a laid back, fun filled enjoyment kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Because this is an isekai, at one point I was thinking, I'm like, is this gonna be like Konosuba, where they're like, they don't care about going back to the regular world? Because I'm like, because he's just rolling in dough. Like, it's just, life is just great for him.
He is.
And then it kind of zooms to the other 3 characters that he showed up with, and they're like, yeah, so after we do this, we're gonna fight the demon lord. And I'm like, oh, that's the requirements to go back? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Halfway through the series.
You might not want to go back.
Oh yeah. Like, why?
Like, he might be like, I'm good, man.
Yeah, rich, powerful, can eat whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's they set it up, and I was like, could they have set that up better to where it'd be a bigger payoff? And it's when they're like, oh yeah, whatever happened to that guy that we showed up with? They're like, oh, he probably got eaten by a monster. And then they're like, oh, did you hear that this rumor of this guy that has like this wolf? And I'm like, yeah, that sets up that like y'all are gonna come across him and be like, oh my God, it's you. But I'm like, could they have done that better? Cause I was like, that was too easy.
Yeah, I have a feeling that come the next season, and obviously there's going to be another season to this thing, but come the next season, I feel like he's going to start coming across like Demon Lord generals or stuff like that, and he'll just, without knowing that he's doing it, he's going to start defeating these things and actually unwittingly becoming the hero that no one thought he was going to be.
Oh yeah.
Pretty sure that's going to happen.
And then it's like, for all the people who come across him and they like smell his food and then just invite themselves in, whether purposely or not purposely, it's like, how are those 3 characters gonna, I'm like, are they gonna get jealous? Are they gonna be just like everybody else? Like, they look down upon him like right now, and then they're gonna find out how impressive he is. But I'm like, are they gonna end up becoming antagonists? Like, or are they just gonna stay as like side characters? They're like, oh yeah, them.
Hard to say.
Because I'm like, what way would I even like for that to turn out? Like, they can't offer him anything. Like,
I feel like in that regard, so like he's going to start defeating like the Demon Lord's army up until the point where he actually goes face to face with the Demon Lord, and I feel like his original party is not going to actually catch up to him until the very end. Like, they're going to keep coming across like him having defeated parts of the Demon Lord's army.
Mm-hmm.
As they're going to go do it themselves, thinking, "Oh, we got to go do this to defeat the Demon Lord," and all of a sudden, our main guy is gonna already done it, and it has gone by the time they get there, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, what the hell happened?" And all of a sudden, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this dude with his wolf." He's like, "Oh, the dude with the wolf. I bet you he's. Oh man, we need to recruit him into our party. Maybe we can meet up with him or something like that."
Yeah.
And they do all this other stuff, and then by the time they get to the very end, and they're like, they catch up with him right before he goes and faces the Demon Lord. They're like, "Oh, it's you." And at first, they'll be like, they'll think that it's, "Oh, you're the weak one. Oh, I'm surprised you managed to last this long without any backup or abilities or whatever." And then he'll do something like absolutely crazy or amazing, and then Fell will show up and Sue will do something, and they'll be like, "I'm sorry, you were saying something?" I feel like that's the direction we're going in.
Okay. Yeah. What if he ends up just saving the world and they like they're just wandering around aimlessly and just get left behind?
That would also be hilarious. I think I would totally be on board for that.
And kept hearing stories about this great hero.
I would not.
I would feel kind of bad if they like still have the terrible food the whole time.
No, they're terrible people. They're terrible people. I would not feel bad at all.
All right. Well, yeah. That was our 9 shows that we finished for the spring season. Winter. No, I wrote it wrong.
Winter. Yeah, winter.
Yes. Currently it's spring.
Yes, currently spring.
I kept having to like dodge the new simulcast. They're like, "Hey, this new show started." I'm like, "Ooh, I can't watch it yet, though." Yeah, it's funny as always. Yeah. As always, this is Big D or DK from DK Shave, TacoYaki Anime. Thank y'all for watching. Thanks for hanging out in chat. Thanks for supporting the channel on any way that you do. And we will see y'all next time.